So this is going to be just a raw, unscripted, how I made my first $1 million online video, and it's not going to be flashy. There's a lot of failure involved in this story, but basically, when I was 18 years old, I lived in New York, and I wanted to go to, I felt like I wanted to change, or I felt like I wanted to be somebody else or be better than I was, and I felt like I had to really get out of my comfort zone, or like I had this feeling that I needed to really travel. I was in between a school in New York City or a school in Texas, and I decided on going to Texas because I didn't know anybody in Texas, and I figured it would be a great place to just start fresh and just figure it out from there. Fast forward about a year into school, I had started that process. I had, really started to think about who I wanted to be, and gave, because I had gone to Texas, I had the space to think about, who exactly I wanted to be. And about a year in, I became really good friends with still one of my best friends today. You'll see him in a lot of my videos, Andrew, because Andrew was super positive, and he had a really positive mindset. I'm just crossing the street here. Really positive mindset, really nice dude. And I realized that in order for me to continue to grow, I need to carefully select my friends, seek them out, and surround myself with better people that were, supportive of the goals or dreams that I wanted. So we had started doing fitness content, and that happened. I started to research, how do you blow up on social media, right? So I figured out how to go viral. So, I started posting YouTube videos. Most of my average views for my first 6 videos, 1,000, 2,000 views. And we were posting on Instagram and doing engagement tactics. And I grew my Instagram from brand new Instagram, from 0 to 6,000, 7,000 followers in a month. And then I was like, holy shit, I have something I'm good at. But then I realized that I didn't really want to be a fitness influencer. And it just wasn't it just wasn't for me. So, but I realized, okay, cool, I did this for myself, I can do this for businesses. So I started getting ads. This is back when Ty Lopez, if you're older, or you're more of an OG in the space, where Ty Lopez was posting here in my garage videos, right? And so when he was posting the Here in My Garage videos, he was selling a course to teach people social media, how to build a social media marketing agency. And that caught me, and the course was $800. And basically I bought the course. I spent all of the money I had. It was all the money I had at the time, $800. It was $200 a month for 4 months or something like that, or $600 paid in full. I couldn't afford the paid in full option. I was waiting tables and bartending at the time. I reached out to a few mentors who I knew had successful businesses, and I was like, hey, can you teach, this is I was just I just started really, really seeking out knowledge and wisdom. I reached out to literally 3 or 4 different business owners who I knew, nothing related to what I was trying to do, but just just wanted to learn from them. Hey, I'm planning to do this. Can you give me some ideas? Or can you give me some feedback? One of them had me write a business plan and then shredded me over the business plan. Another one gave me really clear feedback on what my strengths and weaknesses were that they saw. Another one really supported me, really believed in me, but wanted me to work for free for them for 6 months. Which for better or for worse, I wasn't willing to do. And so I bought that course. It actually overdrafted my bank account one time. They double charged me one day. And I literally went I had zero money. It was literally all the money that I had. But I learned how to do it. Just so happened, still to this point, no paying clients. The school that I was working for hired me to run their social media. So I started posting on there. Started helping them with their social media content. The college I went to, which is Texas A&M at Galveston, And so I'm starting to kind of build some of these skills, making a little bit of money doing it, but I'm not like, that's as like a $8 an hour or $10 an hour campus employee or whatever. And so at this point, no paying clients. I got in an argument with my campus about a rule that they had put forth for dealing with like drunk people in Mardi Gras. And because I think this is how I remember it, because I basically got them to take away the rule, one of my teachers at the school, who actually wasn't my teacher, he saw me arguing with the school and basically win the argument and asked me to go to lunch. Went to lunch and I started explaining to him, this is what I'm trying to do. By the way, I'm going to school for engineering at this point, so I have a multiple six-figure job waiting for me when I graduate. And literally at that lunch, he signed me up, or like he was like, I'm going to be your first client. I need to transition my seminars online. A couple weeks later, I flew with him to San Diego, filmed a bunch of content for him. And that was my first client. Within the next month, I signed my second client, who was a landscaping company, who was a referral from my friend Drew. I would just happen to be in Jacksonville for lacrosse. We took a road trip for our lacrosse team in college, and we went and played in Jacksonville, and I signed up a landscaping client there. And then the client sent me 3 months in advance, sent me a check for 3 months in advance, but then by the time it got to me, they had actually canceled it. They told me to rip up the check. So I gained my second client, but then lost them within like the span. Nothing happened. They just got cold feet. And then from there, I really, really badly wanted to quit my job as a bartender or a waiter. And so I was in college and I was spending, 5 days a week going to become an engineer, also playing lacrosse, also in the Corps of Cadets. And then on the weekends, I was waiting tables and bartending. So I had no free time. I could only basically go to the bars, which I did frequently while I was in college. And so that happened, and within about a year of signing up my first client, I was making around $4 or $5K per month with a social media marketing agency. And I, had been signing up clients all based off referrals. Right about the time that I was graduating, I was like, okay, cool. So I did all of these things in college. I graduated with a good GPA, graduated as an engineer, right? And I'm making $4 or $5K per month. I'm going to take off. As soon as I don't have to go to school anymore and I can just focus on this all in, I can just take off. And meanwhile, I was waking up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. to work on this stuff during college just to get everything that I need to get done. And after I graduated school, I sold my car to go truly all in on the business. And basically, I failed. Long story short, I failed. I thought I was going to be, I was going to be able to pick it up, and I was going to be able to just take off, basically, right? And it did not work. I failed. And within 2 or 3 months, I was completely broke with now no car and no way to even go drive to a job. And I had to basically accept defeat and go get an engineering job. And so that was the first real time that I had really been eat humble pie, where I was like, holy shit, that did not go the way I expected it to. I took some questionable advice. I was asking the question in a way that I wanted them to say yes, you should do this. But I basically asked a mentor at the time, hey, should I fire my top 2 clients because they require me to go in person because I need to go scale online? And that was just a mistake. I learned my lesson from that, but those clients are paying me $3,000 a month. And I didn't have enough income coming from other clients yet to make that a justifiable thing where where that would have made sense, right? So I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. And kind of the lesson there is just don't, if you currently have a day job and you don't have 12 to 24 months minimum of runway saved up, don't quit your day job until you're at least making a few $1,000s a month, right? After that, I went to work as an engineer, saved up money. Literally my first paycheck, I reinvested back directly into the business. So literally my first check, half of it went to pay off credit card debt. The other half went to continue to invest in myself, right? And I paid somebody to help me get a virtual assistant and teach me how to like build systems online, if that makes sense. Because I knew that in order to scale, I needed to transition online, because everything I'd done to that point was I was like doing in-person videos and social media marketing, but I wasn't doing something where like I was giving, people were getting value that I could scale outside of just my time. So went back to school as an engineer. I actually closed a $2,000 a month retainer client from the engine room of my ship, because that was the only place that they had Wi-Fi. I was working on ships, so I was a marine engineer. That was the only place on the ship that had Wi-Fi, basically. So I had to go down to the engine room to go close the deal. And this is before like Starlink and all that stuff, right? So, which I did. I closed the deal. A few months later, had some money saved up, and my friend was going to Europe. Again, Andrew. And I was like, dude, cause I'm thinking, dude, I was so fucking broke. Like just 5 months ago, I just finished my contract. It was 4 months. I'd saved up like 30 grand. And he was like, dude, I'm going to Europe. And I was like, dude, I just saved up all this money. Like 5 months ago, I was broke. I don't think it's a good idea. And at the time, I'm starting to almost settle into this idea of, you know, being an engineer and living this life. And I was about to buy a truck, you know, and if I bought that truck, then that means I have more responsibility to make money with it. And so I'm very closely like almost slipping down this road of kind of falling into the trap that a lot of people fall into. And eventually I watched a Yes Theory video and I was like, fuck it. So I booked a flight. I went to Europe, backpacked, and I really started to like step into, again, closer to the ultimate version of myself. And I left that trip just super motivated to not go back and be an engineer. And I spent the next 4 or 5 months sleeping on an air mattress in my friend's apartment. Sleeping on air mattresses in multiple friends' apartments over the next like 8 months. Just grinding, trying to get it going, you know, trying to figure it out. I quit drinking for 60 days when I returned from Europe. I exercised every day. I did the keto diet. At the time I was like 200 pounds. I was overweight. I was unhappy. And all this is going on, and I lose 40 pounds, still not seeing the consistency that I need to see in the business yet. So I'm on a group call of my mentor, Justin Saunders, at the time, who, you know, spoiler alert, now we are business partners, but his brother, who's also, spoiler alert, one of my best friends now, was on a call and saying that he needed to hire an account manager, somebody to manage his clients. And so I took that on as a job, and I went there and I managed his clients for $100 a client. They had 10 clients, and they lost half their clients in the first 30 days because basically nobody had talked to them before I jumped in. And within 6 to 8 months, the company went from 10K a month to like 70, 80K per month. And a huge reason for that was I had really gotten extremely good with account management and client success, and like really coaching the clients to be successful, and not just necessarily like, hey, here's all your leads, good luck. No, I would jump on with them weekly, go over their goals, and just over and over again push them to call their leads. And once they started doing that, they started getting better. They started making way more money, so they would stick around longer. Better case studies led to being able to charge more, and it just really went from there. And so about 8 months into that, Blake fired me because it became too expensive. I was making like $3,500 a month at the time, which in retrospect, for a company that's making 70, 80 grand a month, spending 7 to 8 grand a month on account management, that's what makes sense. But I was at the time though, you just don't know. So like I messed with Blake a lot for this, but he fired me because I was too expensive. Meanwhile, realistically, if looking back at it, like I was being underpaid for the value that I was generating. But I didn't care. I was living in fucking Barcelona, you know, living the dream. Everything's good. I'm making maybe $3,000 per month through my own agency at this point. Figured some things out. I had started to get some clients online, but very sporadically, not enough to like really get going. And after he fired me, I was like, okay, cool. Well, I guess I got to figure it out now. I tried working with roofers, and then I think it was within about 30 to 60 days after I was no longer the account manager of that agency, is I hit my first 10K a month with roofers. And I was like, hell yes. Like a 10K per month was like my goal for so long. And I hit my first 10K a month. And I was like, holy shit, I did it. And then I shut the business down. I realized I did not like roofers. I did not like working with roofers. And so I shut that business down. The business partner that I had at the time, we just weren't a match either. I was trying to, at this point, I've already tried to work out with 2 or 3 business partners, and just none of them really worked. And so shut that down, and then I go back to the drawing board a little bit here. And at this point, I'm traveling, and about 6 months later, I go to Costa Rica with my friends, and I remember I had partnered with somebody from the mentorship program I was in. So me and somebody were talking in the program. He was really good at sales. He liked doing sales. He just didn't like the fulfillment and like working with the clients on a day-to-day basis. And that's what I was really gifted at. So we decided to partner. We created a no-brainer offer, which means a no-brainer offer is like something that's like super easy to people say yes to. So it's much more risk on my end as a business owner to offer it typically. Whereas like, an example of this would like, hey, only pay when you get results versus pay me all up front, right? So if I say, hey, I'm going to get you this result, but you need to pay me all the money up front for the result, versus, hey, I'm going to get you this result and you only have to pay me after you get the result, right? Which of those is more of a no-brainer? And that's essentially what we did. In the first month, we signed up 10 clients. And I remember being in Costa Rica. I was sitting on this, I was in a Selena hostel with like 3 of my buddies. And I remember sitting on this bench, ready to do the first kickoff call with one of these clients. And then the lady no-showed, which was, it was funny. But anyways, about a year in, we had hit our first 50K month. And so at this point, I probably generated around 600K online. Definitely not 1 million yet. I wasn't at 1 million. But I was, at this point I had been traveling the world. I was all throughout Latin America. I met my current wife literally a month into this trip, where I went to, Mexico and Costa Rica and Panama and Brazil and Argentina and Colombia. And I was just like, exactly what I wanted out of life. I was doing, oh my God. It's like a movie, it was like just the stuff that I was able to do. And just because I had committed and not given up, by, 23, 24, I was making good money, traveling the world, and just doing exactly what I wanted to do. And right around this time, I had gotten complacent. And that's for another story. But basically, within about a year and a half of starting that program, that marketing program with that partner, I had bought him out, and I had made my first $1 million online. Now, that is gross. So I am probably now, this was maybe 2-3 years ago, that's gross earnings, right? So that's like what my agency made, not what I've made, right? So that's the thing about online, is like people are like, oh, I made $1 million or whatever last month. I didn't personally take home $1 million, right? I did not personally take home $1 million. My agency processed $1 million through it. I am within the next 6 to 12 months, going to have taken home my first $1 million online. But that is how I've actually generated $1 million online. And at this point, just that one company has generated $2 million. And between all the companies that I'm running right now, they're probably going to do 5 or 6 million this year, and that might double next year. But I just kind of wanted to share, kind of the experience of what it was like, and how basically I was able to generate my first million online as an entrepreneur. And it took me about 4 or 5 years to do it. And it really went it didn't happen. It wasn't like a straight line. It was like this, like really, really low, not a lot happening, kind of up and down, 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 testing things, pivoting, trying different industries. I tried to work with dentists. I tried to work with roofers. I tried doing in-person stuff. I tried to work with real estate agents, and it just went like up and down, up and down, up and down, boom. And that's truly what it's typically like. It's not typically just a straight line up. So if you're 2 years in or 6 months in or whatever, and you're not quite seeing the exponential growth that you see online and all that stuff, don't worry about it. It took me like 5 years. In the meantime, I was making enough money to survive. I also took, I guess I forgot to mention this, I took a job doing remote closing. That was honestly just enough for me. So each time along the journey where I really needed extra money to make it through, I always found something. At one point I'm managing accounts for somebody, at another point I'm doing sales, and all of those things in the end made me better. At one point coaching people, at one point managing people's clients, doing sales. And so all of the things that I had to do to keep me afloat ended up being things that made me more skilled, made me a better entrepreneur. And, last year, I think I just did my taxes. That first business that I started, my combined businesses did over $1 million last year. 2 years straight that my businesses that I own did over $1 million. And then the companies that I'm a minority partner in, or I'm the COO of, or whatever, combined did about 5 million last year. All from, taking 3 years to crack my first 10K month, right? So basically the moral of the story is, I don't know if I'm stupid or just extremely resilient. I would hope that I'm just super resilient. I made every mistake you can possibly make, and I still did it. So if you're just getting started, or you're further along and you haven't yet really unlocked it, you haven't really made it yet, do not worry about it, man. There's a saying that we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And that is the truth. I have been doing this for about 9 years now. I started when I was 19, I'm 28 now. And it definitely took me longer than I thought it was going to. It for sure took me longer. However, where I'm at now in the business is greater than I ever could have really imagined me being, right? The stuff that I'm working on, the projects that I'm working on now, the people that I work with, the experiences that I have is so much further than I could have really imagined. And it just took longer than I expected. So hopefully this is useful. And I hope to see you in the next video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a question, and please subscribe. All right, peace.